In this video, I want to talk with you about the Antichrist, and the title of the video is The Antichrist is Here. Well, the Antichrist has been here, but this Antichrist kingdom that is rising in the end is rising, and the image of the beast that's going to persecute God's people is in power right now. It is not reigning, but it is in power, and its power is increasing, and it will continue to do so until next year. And I want to explain this to you so that you can understand what it is that you're seeing right now. The first thing that I feel I need to explain is a little bit about how God teaches and how he reveals. If you've been listening to the channel for a little while, and or you've heard me talk about the Antichrist, I've demonstrated for you who the Antichrist is, that the Antichrist is the spirit of Satan. Many Antichrists have come. These are his children. They belong to his kingdom. And that the Antichrist of the end, which is described as a beast, and a beast is always a kingdom. It's always a kingdom, a government, a system, a string of governments. A beast that's always been what a beast is. It's never going to describe a man. So the Antichrist is not a man, and the rest of Scripture demonstrates that for us. When Scripture refers to the man of lawlessness being revealed or the man of sin, it's talking about Satan. And it just so happens that the time of which Paul is describing that is the same time when Jesus is always also being revealed. So they're being revealed concurrently. You're seeing who's been behind good and who's been behind evil. The rest of Scripture demonstrates that the Antichrist of the time of the end that Scripture is referring to a kingdom. And I've demonstrated it for you from Daniel 2 to Daniel 7, Revelation 13, Revelation 17. It's always a kingdom. And in fact, all throughout the book of Daniel and all throughout the book of Revelation, it is a kingdom. And that kingdom consists of false religion. And it consists of people who actually think that they are in Christ. That's the reason why Christ said, many are going to come to me and they're going to say, Lord, Lord, didn't we do all these things in your name? And he's going to say, depart from me, evildoers, I never knew you. Did Christ come to chastise and rebuke pagans? No, he did not. He was chastising and rebuking those who claimed to see. And those who, by the way, had quite a bit of influence and authority, even were given influence and authority to kill the Messiah. These were the teachers, the scribes, the Pharisees. That's who he was rebuking. In Scripture, we understand who that kingdom is. We understand it because the kingdoms start in Daniel 2 with Babylon. And you see in Daniel 2 that it's going to be the fifth kingdom. And you see in Daniel 7 that it's going to be the fifth kingdom. And you see in Revelation 17 that it is the fifth kingdom. All you have to know is that it starts with Babylon, and then you just count down. Well, who took down who? Babylon fell to Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia fell to Greece. Greece fell to pagan Rome. Pagan Rome fell to papal Rome. There is the Antichrist. But here's the thing that God has been doing. He has been teaching us in building blocks, and this is his pattern. Let me give you a couple of examples. Oh, wait a minute. Paul's saying that circumcision has never really been about circumcision of the physical flesh, but circumcision of the heart from the sinful flesh. Well, why didn't you just say that, Lord? Why didn't he just say that, guys? Because you wouldn't know what circumcision was unless he established it in the physical. He had to teach you in building blocks what it means to separate flesh. Well, wait a minute. You're saying that this nation that you established of the Israelites to be set apart from other nations as a holy nation to you, and all the other nations are unclean, unholy. You're telling me that now not all who are descended from Israel are Israel, not all who are descended from Abraham are Abraham's children, and that a Jew is not one who is one outwardly through circumcision, but inwardly through circumcision of the heart? Well, why didn't you just say that? Why didn't he just say that? Because we needed to understand circumcision. We needed to understand what a nation even was. We needed to understand what it looked like for a nation to be set apart, to have a different set of rules than the rest of the world, a different standard, different requirements, We needed to understand that in order to understand being a spiritual nation that has been scattered throughout the nations, but is called to live as a nation separated from the rest of these nations, required to be holy as God is holy. We needed to understand that when all of us are scattered among the nations, that God begins to pull us from the nations and pull us out of Babylon and bring us to a place that he calls Israel, which is a spiritual place. It is a spiritual place of understanding in which he plucks us from the nations and he gives us a heart to know him. And he moves us to follow his laws and keep his decrees. We who have had that happen to us are in that nation of Israel, and it is not in the Middle East. It is a spiritual nation that he has brought us to, a spiritual place. And when he comes back, it has always been understood this way in Scripture, that when the Messiah returns, he will establish his nation and restore the kingdom to Israel. Not a nation in the Middle East, not an ethnicity. These are building blocks that he established in order for us to understand spiritual things. And so the people who think concretely in terms of a literal nation, a literal race and ethnicity are not getting it. This is why God said to not rely on your own understanding, but to understand the ways of God. But these people don't care about that because they don't care about truth. With regard to those building blocks, you have to have a deep understanding of Scripture and the landscape that God has laid out in order for those building blocks to build something, to build understanding and awareness and wisdom of what is happening right now. So he defines that kingdom to be papal Rome. That's the fifth kingdom. And in Revelation 17, we discover that the Antichrist actually was in power before. And so it was, now is not, from the perspective of John, who in the vision was in the sixth kingdom. It was, now is not, but will rise again to go to its destruction. So we understand that this kingdom is papal Rome. But then we see in Daniel 2 that papal Rome has toes that are coming out of her. She's represented as feet in that statue that are made of baked clay and iron, which are two materials that do not adhere to each other. She is a divided kingdom, and she has 10 toes coming out of her. In Revelation 17, we see that she's described as Babylon the Great, the mother of all prostitutes. She started something, and her daughters continue in those prostitutions. And what she started was false religion, counterfeit Christianity. And so when she rises again in the eighth kingdom, we have to take into consideration all that has ensued since she rose in that fifth kingdom. Now she has daughters that have bore out of her who continue in her prostitutions. Let me explain those prostitutions to you. Counterfeit tithing. Tithing was always associated with sacrifice. And if Jesus came as the once and for all sacrifice, why are people still paying tithing? I'll tell you why. Because in Daniel 11 it says that a tax goes out to maintain her royal splendor. And that's exactly what you see today. Do you see people getting rich off of the so-called Word of God? Because my Bible says that that is not a thing. You cannot serve both God and money. The door is narrow, so why are there so many people paying for these lavish lifestyles of these prostitutes? I'll tell you why. Because they're prostitutes. Do you see these churches observing Sunday Sabbath, Saturday Sabbath? Because those are not days in God's holy word. God's days are numbered because they're numbered according to the moon. The cycle of the moon, beginning with the new moon, which is actually the crescent moon. And there are 30 days in God's month. We know this from Genesis and we know it from Revelation. And so there can't possibly be a relentless set of 7-day weeks. As a matter of fact, there is a first day of the month, which is a rest day, and that is new moon. And then 6 work days and a rest day, 6 work days and a rest day, 6 work days and a rest day, 6 work days and a rest day. That constitutes 4 consecutive weeks. And then there is a day of work, and that is the 30th day, or usually a day of work, except for the month in which Pentecost occurs. And then it starts all over again. So there are 4 consecutive weeks with 2 days in between. That sounds weird to you because we have grown up prostituting ourselves to what the Roman Catholic Church established. There is not a Gregorian calendar in God's Word. God's calendar is a 360-day calendar. And on a 360-day calendar, though it's technically 354 24-hour days, I've explained this in other videos. I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to lose people. I don't want to lose your attention. It's a lot to understand. There's a lot that we need to understand because there has been a lot of deception. On a 360-day calendar, a month on God's calendar, the month of Aviv or Nisan, for example, is going to make its round all across the seasonal calendar. So this is the reason why the season-specific, harvest-specific holy days of the offering of first fruits and Pentecost, or the Festival of Weeks, don't have a date. Because you can't say what month they're in. You can only understand them based on the harvest season. So eventually they're going to land in every month on God's calendar. If you don't fully understand this, I don't think that you would, just from what I just said right now. But I have many videos on this channel talking about this. And if you have questions, write them in the comments section, and I'll be happy to do a video for you explaining this based on scripture. These prostitutes also continue in images that were set up by the harlot Catholic Church. Constantine the Fake set up the image of the cross, claiming that he had received a vision from Jesus that by this image, you're going to conquer. And of course, he said, by this sign, you're going to conquer, but it's an image. The cross is an image. Early Christians, who were Jews, did not set up an image of Christianity because they knew that they were not supposed to do that. That is an image of counterfeit Christianity. It is the image of the false god Tammuz, who is mentioned in Ezekiel 8, and you're told in the beginning of the chapter that you're going to see the abomination that incites God's jealous wrath. And by the end of the chapter, you see that women are mourning the god Tammuz, who is a fertility god, and the men are bowing down to the sun in the east. Well, Tammuz, guess what, is also a sun god. That is the abomination of desolation, but it doesn't mean that you're going to physically bow down to it. It means that that is what is in your heart. That is what your heart has been bowing down to. And by the time that that abomination of desolation is set up, you will have made your decision. So we talk about this kingdom of counterfeit Christianity, but how does this nation of counterfeit Israel, this ethnic nation of so-called Jews, because they're not Jews according to God's definition of a Jew. And many so-called ethnic Jews will tell you, what actual ethnicity are we? We're a mix of ethnicities. So it doesn't really make sense. How does what is going on right now in the Middle East, these Zionist Jews, how do they fit into counterfeit Christianity and being part of this kingdom? Well, first of all, before I answer that question, I want you to understand the prostitutes that bore out of her, you're seeing in all of these denominations and traditions and people who follow man, Calvin, Luther, Knox, Wesley. That's the name on their forehead. They are prostitutes. So you need not ask the question, which is the true church? The only true church has been defined in John 4 as those who worship God in the spirit and in truth. True worshipers must worship him in the spirit and in truth. That requires you to have a personal relationship with him. If you don't know how to do that, comment in the comment section, because I will help you. I will help you to understand what is required in your covenant. And I will do it for free. You do not have to pay me, because I do not serve God and money. Those are prostitutes that bore out of this kingdom, and they are of that kingdom. So although it started with papal Rome, it has now grown. It has now infected. It established itself in the beautiful land. Again, spiritual understanding, guys. Spiritual understanding. What is the beautiful land? Also called Israel, though it is not a land, it is not an ethnicity, it is those who worship God in the spirit and in truth, who are spiritual Jews engrafted into the commonwealth of Israel as defined by circumcision of the heart. How does counterfeit Judaism, counterfeit Israel, how do these Zionists fit into this counterfeit Christian kingdom? Well, they have also prostituted themselves to her. Saturday Sabbath. What is Saturday Sabbath, guys? Not what God established. God established numbers of days for good reason, because if you were to put together a calendar of God's days, you're not going to be able to say, in this many days, it's going to be, in 7 more days, it'll be the same day of the week. You can't say that, because I just got done explaining to you that there are 30 days in God's calendar and only 4 consecutive 7-day weeks. His days have to be numbered. They cannot be named. So why are they observing this? Because they received that from Rome, and this is what they practice. Why have they added an additional calendar to God's supposed Hebrew calendar? And why are they using Babylonian names? And why does that calendar line up with the Gregorian calendar? Again, because they have adapted the calendar in order to line up to the Gregorian calendar, in order to prostitute themselves to their harlot mother. And they claim that they are the chosen people, just like counterfeit Christianity claims that they are the chosen people. Counterfeit Christianity has propped up this race, this land, as being the chosen people. They have the same doctrines. They've joined their doctrines. If you can't see that right now, it's astounding that there are, first of all, there are Jews in the Middle East who are like, what are you Christians talking about, right? Obviously, counterfeit Christians. What are you even talking about? The Messiah is supposed to set up the kingdom, but okay. If you're saying like we're the chosen people, we're cool with that. And then you have Jews who in the Middle East, in counterfeit Israel, who are saying, well, the Bible entitles us to this. They don't even know the Bible. First of all, counterfeit Christians don't know the Bible. Counterfeit Judaism doesn't know the Bible. This is something that they are using and exploiting in order to get some reward here in this life. And they will, if they even receive it, that'll be their reward. They will not be in eternity with Christ. They'll be in eternity because the smoke of their torment is going to rise forever and ever, but they will not be in the eternal kingdom. From this perspective, now this is something that we would have had to, again, going back to what I'm saying about how God teaches in building blocks, is that he has shown us that fifth kingdom is the Antichrist, that kingdom of papal Rome that started counterfeit Christianity. And then he says this kingdom is going to rise again and will be the 8th kingdom. And so we think, okay, well, Rome is going to rise again. It will rise again, but not necessarily in the way that we might think. Because now that kingdom that started out merely with papal Rome has spread like a disease into these counterfeit Christian prostitutes that call themselves traditions and denominations and identify themselves by the doctrines of man. Now that counterfeit Christian kingdom that started with papal Rome has spread like a disease to counterfeit Judaism, which, by the way, if you haven't accepted the Messiah, you're not a Jew. You're not practicing Judaism, because Christianity is the fulfillment of Judaism. All Christians are Jews, true Christians. and all Jews are Christian, true Jews. The first Christians were Jews, and they didn't sit around saying, well, now that we're Christian, let's change some of this stuff up. No one did that. But you know who did? Reformed Judaism. Those who did not accept Christ reformed his word in a movement that I wrote about in A Soul Aligned before all of this even went down, before October 7th ever went down, before we ever saw what was going on with this image of the Antichrist, this image of Israel, counterfeit Israel. Before any of this happened, God had me write about that movement of Wissenschaft des Judentums, the science of Judaism, 3 or 4 years ago. And when I was writing about it, I took it up with him and I said, Lord, you really want me to write about this? You want me to put this in this book? Do you know what I'm going to be accused of? I'm going to be accused of being anti-Semitic. Yes, I am going to be accused of being anti-Semitic. This is not a race issue. Let me make that clear. This is a moral issue. This is a gospel issue. This is a truth issue. But I will be accused of being anti-Semitic because the world distorts this. They distort the truth to their own narrative, and they've been working on this narrative for a long time, this narrative of race. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, if you don't know that God punishes, that he brings wrath, read Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28. Read what he says he's going to do, because that is what he did to counterfeit Jews during the Holocaust. He brought judgment because they saw fit to prostitute themselves to the world and reform his word when they were supposed to be the light of the world. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do when his people turned from him and serve other gods. What they did in this movement called Wissenschaft des Judentums, in Europe, by the way, because the Holocaust wasn't global, it was exclusive to Europe. So take a look at what they were doing. They prostituted themselves to rabbinical commentaries. They denied the authority of God's law. They set up synagogues for this movement because they wanted to be like the world. The world has science and they have evolution, this idea of evolution in which we don't have to submit to God anymore. Now we've got science, right? The science that denies the creator, that denies that there's a creator, which by definition, Jesus is the creator. Anyone who denies Christ is of the what? The Antichrist. By definition, they prostituted themselves to the Antichrist. So when we talk about counterfeit Israel, the image that counterfeit Christianity has set up of counterfeit Israel and counterfeit Jews and a counterfeit chosen people, when we talk about that, you should understand that this is all part of that fifth kingdom of papal Rome. But now it's become something bigger as wickedness has blossomed and God has been harvesting, rounding them up into this kingdom. All who do not love the truth, all who have rejected knowledge, and therefore he hands them over to delusion. And what you see going on right now in what is being called Zionism is utter delusion. Christians, counterfeit Christians trying to hasten Armageddon, that right there is a clear indication that they don't even know the word, because Armageddon doesn't happen until Jesus returns with those he's resurrected. Until the bride, the wedding feast has come, and he returns with his bride to slay the wicked with the double-edged sword coming out of his mouth, to throw the Antichrist and the false prophet into the lake of burning sulfur, and to bind Satan for 1,000 years. That does not occur until well after the resurrection, the bowls of wrath, the fall of Babylon, then the wedding feast, then he returns. So these people do not even understand what they're talking about. They think they're going to hasten Armageddon. They think that this nation is going to experience the persecution and death of the Antichrist, which is amazing because actually in Revelation 13, it says that it's the image of the Antichrist. The very people that they think are going to bear their covenant for them and bear all this persecution from the Antichrist, the very people they think are going to do this, who counterfeit Christianity is worshiping right now, who are of the same kingdom of the Antichrist, that nation, they are the ones, that image of the beast, they are the ones who are going to actually do the persecuting. Revelation 13. And the false prophet, performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast. The image of the first beast, not to the first beast, but to the image, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. So it's not actually Rome who is doing all of this. It's not Catholicism who's doing all of this. It's the image of the kingdom that Catholicism set up, of counterfeit religion. And that image is counterfeit Israel. And if you can't have any sense whatsoever to look at what they're doing right now, they are blocking humanitarian aid to go into Gaza. They are prohibiting people from buying or selling or receiving supplies. And they are going to do this. They're going to turn on their BFF of the United States, the false prophet that created them. They are going to turn. Now, the word says that the Antichrist and the false prophet are going to be thrown into the lake of burning sulfur. It doesn't say anything about the image of the beast, the image of the Antichrist. That is, the reason for that is because the image of the Antichrist is the Antichrist. It is of the Antichrist. So if you have Biden or you have Trump as the president, as the face of the United States, do you then separate them out and say, Biden or Trump are not of the United States? No, they're of the United States. They're just representing. This is the face of, the image of counterfeit Israel. Because true Israel, guys, what is true Israel? Sit and think for a minute. Don't be lazy. What is true Israel? True Israel are God's people, those who worship in the spirit and in truth, those who are circumcised in heart from the sinful flesh, those who do the will of God, those who do what Abraham did, those who pick up their cross, those who are suffering for Christ. That's true Israel. This is not true Israel. This is counterfeit Israel. They have coveted the name that belongs to God's people. And they are now turning on those who set them up. Okay, you need to understand that. You need to look at what Netanyahu is doing. The U.S. has to fall to counterfeit Christianity. It has to fall specifically to this image. And it's not going to fall right away. It's going to fall next year. Just like every other kingdom, when they fell, there wasn't some lapse or gap between Babylon falling to Medo-Persia. It was like Babylon was in power and then Medo-Persia took over. So the United States is going to fall next year. But you should see that it's falling right now. You should see that Israel is turning against its quote-unquote creator. Listen to how Israelis feel about the U.S. They resent their best friend. And they will resentfully and bitterly call the U.S. Israel's sugar daddy. We have to wait for our sugar daddy to tell us what to do. They're resentful that the United States would even attempt to have any say in how its aid or weapons are being used, that we're providing. And Netanyahu has affirmatively and arrogantly said, we won't be taking orders from anyone. Let me be clear. Do you hear the attitude that is coming out of this Frankenstein that was created by the United States? I mean, they've been happy to take our handouts since the 1970s at approximately $3.3 billion a year. But all of a sudden, there's this like bitterness, and he's, putting out videos telling on the U.S. To whom is he telling, guys? To whom is he telling on the U.S.? To counterfeit Christianity. That's who he's telling on the U.S. to its counterfeit Christian supporters, both here and in Europe. Because remember that the 10 Germanic tribes that became Western Europe are being warned by the Antichrist. The Antichrist is wearing these 10 horns. So they're going to turn. They're going to be appalled that the U.S. would do such a thing. And the fall is coming. And Revelation 17 says that this seventh kingdom of the United States, of the false prophet, must stay for a little while. It has a purpose, and in fact, it has two roles in that purpose. Number one, to testify to counterfeit Christianity, to the Antichrist. And number two, to create the image. But remember that Satan doesn't have loyalty. And the best way that you can understand Satan's character is to look at what the world calls narcissism, because that is his character. He uses for his purpose. He's going to be your best friend as long as you're giving to him, and then he discards. So this best friend of Israel is no longer needed. We were BFFs, a minute ago, but it's no longer needed. So you have to understand that the image of the Antichrist is still the Antichrist. The word does not say that the false prophet, the Antichrist, and the image go into the lake of burning sulfur. It says the false prophet and the Antichrist, which includes the image, because the image is the face of counterfeit Christianity. They are not separate. This will be the fall of the U.S. And who is the U.S. going to fall to? This kingdom started by papal Rome, continuing in the prostitutes that bore out of her. The one who will have power is the image of the Antichrist, counterfeit Israel. I wondered how this was going to look, and in terms of what Scripture, the building blocks that God was using in Scripture to help me to understand. It seemed to me that Rome was going to rise, and there may still be some way that Rome is going to rise. But from what I can see, the power has been handed over to one that has bore out of her. That is still her. It's still that same kingdom. But that power will be given to this image to actually be executing judgment on those who will not worship it. And also, from what I can see, the strategy of Rome, of Catholicism, is to sit back and commission others to do her work. So we may not even see her actually take an active role in bringing judgment. It doesn't seem to actually imply that in Scripture. Scripture seems to imply that the image is the one who's going to be doing this. So we may just see her doing things like putting out false doctrines through Hollywood and The Chosen and, this sort of thing, and stirring the pot of counterfeit Christianity behind the scenes. Another thing that I wondered is how God is going to bring people out of Babylon and bring judgment, because during that time, during the Antichrist reign, because he tells us in Scripture, in Ezekiel 14 and 24, let's actually read them. Ezekiel 14, verse 21, "For this is what the sovereign Lord says. How much worse will it be when I send against Jerusalem my 4 dreadful judgments?" By the way, Jerusalem is spiritual Jerusalem. He's not talking about land. "Sword, famine, and wild beasts and plague, to kill its men and their animals. Yet there will be some survivors, sons and daughters, who will be brought out of it. They will come to you, and when you see their conduct and their actions, you will be consoled regarding the disaster I brought on Jerusalem. Every disaster I have brought on it, you will be consoled when you see their conduct and their actions, for you will know that I have done nothing in it without cause, declares the sovereign Lord." Well, we know that sword, famine, wild beast, and plague are spoken of in the seals. We know that this is occurring during the Antichrist reign, and he's talking about those who need to have their conduct and their actions need to be changed. So he's bringing judgment on them. And then in Ezekiel 24, he talks about Jerusalem, his people, as the cooking pot, and he talks about trying to burn trying to cleanse them and burn this pot that is encrusted, whose deposits will not go away. And so he says, like, you wouldn't even be cleansed by fire. And so later on in this chapter, he says, now your impurity is lewdness, because I tried to cleanse you, but you would not be cleansed from your impurity. You will not be clean again until my wrath against you has subsided. I, the Lord, have spoken. The time has come for me to act. I will not hold back. I will not have pity, nor will I relent. You will be judged according to your conduct and your actions, declares the sovereign Lord. The way I understand this is that he has sent his witnesses to testify for 3.5 years, 1,260 days. And I'm telling you right now, no one listens. There are 6 people who show up to our Sabbath, who do the work, who've done the workshops, and that's it. And actually, I'm one of those people, so technically there's 5. Who on this channel is listening and actually putting into practice what I've been saying? I've been telling you this, and God talks about it. When he calls Ezekiel as a watchman, he says, I'm sending you to the people of Israel, not a people of obscure speech and strange language, to the people of Israel. They're supposed to understand what you're saying. They're supposed to understand the word. They're supposed to understand, what God has established with them. But they're not going to, and you have to speak what I tell you to speak. So Ezekiel's given a scroll. He's told to eat the scroll, and he goes in the bitterness and anger of his spirit. And this is similar to what happens in Revelation as well, when John eats the scroll, and which are the words of God, and they turn bitter in his stomach. They're sweet in his mouth, but bitter in his stomach. Same thing with Ezekiel, sweet in his mouth, but he goes in the anger and bitterness of his spirit. I'm sorry, in Revelation it says sour. And I understand this, because when God speaks to me, I get excited, and I'm like, okay, but surely someone's going to want to, I don't know why I even think this at this point. Surely someone's going to be excited about the truth. Surely someone's going to want to know the truth. Surely they're going to respond. I go and I speak. I do a video. People dislike it. They say nasty things to me. They send me nasty messages. You know who listens? The 5 people in the assembly. That's pathetic. And so Ezekiel is told, you're going to go to these people and you're going to speak the words that I tell you to speak, whether they listen or they fail to listen. And then God tells them, they are not going to listen to you because they do not listen to me. Do you know how much that stinks to do this? Every day I'm broken. I've given up everything that I have to do what I'm doing. I go out and speak. 5 people listen. 5 people put it into practice. You know what God says in Ezekiel 33? My people come to you as they usually do and sit before you to hear your words, but they do not put them into practice. Their mouths speak of love, but their hearts are greedy for unjust gain. Indeed, to them, you are nothing more than one who sings love songs with a beautiful voice and plays an instrument well. For they hear your words. So they hear them, but they don't put them into practice. When all this comes true, and surely it will, then they will know that a prophet has been among them. I'm telling you that right now. This is the truth. When all this comes true, what I'm telling you right now, because when the Antichrist rises, I will be killed. I won't be around. When all this comes true, and it surely will, then they will know that a prophet has been among them. It's not like I'm going to be around for anyone. I mean, I don't even think that there would be glory in it, because I don't have any hope in humanity to actually open their eyes when these things are fulfilled. Everyone just keeps making excuses about why what I'm saying is not actually happening, and yet everything God has told me, because these aren't my words, everything he's told me to warn you about has come true. I'm glad I'll be gone. To be honest, I'm glad I'll be gone at that point. I don't need to hang around for anyone to finally, tell me, oh, it was true. In God's mercy, he'll take me out of this misery, because this is not fun. Now, the reason I'm reading these scriptures to you is because there's an indication that those who have not believed and refuse to be cleansed and sit around listening to God's prophets but never put it into action, that's the reason they're going to be persecuted by this image of the Antichrist. If they are to go into captivity they will go. If they are to die by the sword they will be killed. It's going to be a really bad time. And that image of the Antichrist is going to require that you worship it. And Europe is going to be supporting this. So you better know now, because if you bow down and worship that image, you will not be saved. You will be thrown into the lake of burning sulfur. If you succumb to all this nonsense, listen, I wrote about this in A Soul Aligned, and I took it up with God and was like, why do you have me talking about this? Do you know what I'm going to be accused of? Yes, he knows what I'm going to be accused of. And actually, he knows that that very accusation is going to cost me my life, because I refuse to bow down to it, and I'm going to call it out for what it is. It is fake. It is counterfeit. And it is, in fact, the image of the Antichrist, and you need to know that. That is what the U.S. will fall to. It's starting right now. This BFF is turning on it. And in fact, it seems like counterfeit Christianity has this narrative that Israelis love them. That is not true. You just might need to listen to the things that they're saying. They are resentful. They hate the United States. And the thing that blows me away, that is like so stupid to me, is that counterfeit Christianity has this narrative that they're gonna be the ones who are suffering, and that they're going to essentially be sacrificed on their behalf. I mean, this is their Messiah. Counterfeit Israel is their Messiah. Jesus is not their Messiah. Otherwise, they'd listen to what Jesus said. So they think all of this. What do you think? How do you think Israelis take that? While counterfeit Christianity is trying to hasten their persecution and their death, their so-called persecution and their death, you think they're like, oh, yeah, thanks. Oh, yeah, we're your Messiah. No! I posted a video of a rabbi, an interview with a rabbi, saying that you Christians worship one Jew, you should be worshiping all Jews. Who's speaking that? Who's the Antichrist, guys? The spirit of Satan, and many Antichrists have come. What do you think compelled that man to say those words? That is the devil right there. And that is exactly the attitude that you should be paying attention to. You Christians worship one Jew, you should be worshiping all Jews. Okay? That's the attitude of the image of the Antichrist. You need to know. And Satan doesn't really care who it is, as long as you are not worshiping God. Because as it's written in Revelation 13, Satan gives his power and authority. The dragon gives his power and authority to the beast, so that in worshiping the beast, counterfeit Christianity, they're worshiping the dragon. And then there's also the image of the beast. Satan does not care. You can worship a hose nozzle. The word doesn't say if you go and worship Ashtoreth, then you're going into the lake of burning sulfur. If you go and worship Leviathan, then you're going into the lake of burning sulfur. It doesn't say that, because false gods are nothing. The word says that if you turn away from God, which includes all of these false messiahs that people are calling God or are calling Jesus, including the chosen, if you are worshiping anything other than God, if you have turned from him to other gods, doesn't matter which gods those are, you will not be saved. So the United States has served its purpose, guys. Revelation 17, it must stay for a little while. It has served its purpose. It has testified to counterfeit Christianity. It has created the image. Now it will fall to that image. All that language about Israel's best friend, no longer needed. This is a terrible best friend. But you know what? The United States is getting what it deserves. It has profaned the name of God, distorted his gospel. It's getting exactly what it deserves. And it will fall. It's going to fall next year. And nothing is going to change that. Because this is in the word. When that Antichrist rises, it's not going to have two kingdoms. It will replace the false prophet, this global superpower that we thought was invincible. It will replace it. So you watch it unfold. You watch Karine Jean-Pierre in her interviews in utter shock. We have no idea what Netanyahu is talking about. I mean, you just watch it. But don't just watch. You need to go return to God and find out what you're supposed to be doing right now. Because I'm telling you right now that if you don't return to God and you don't do the things that the rest of the body is doing, like assembling all the more as the day approaches, like doing our personal accountability work so that we have repented and been purified, made spotless and refined. If you're not doing this work, you are going to go through so much at the hands of the image of this Antichrist. And that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that you join it and you completely forsake your salvation. Please discern this with God.